Hello there, and welcome to my Arty Corner. It's been a while, it really has. And although I'm feeling better, I still can lack a lot of energy and focus. But I'm getting there. I'll fill you in more as we draw. And at the end of the video, rather than the beginning, I'm going to go through some of my recent drawings so you can see what I've been up to. I haven't neglected art, but I just haven't had the focus, the energy to do everything that's needed to film a video, then edit it and upload it and everything else. So fingers crossed, all will be well today. So what have I got here in front of me? Well, I've actually got a few things. I've got almost squares, squarish shaped pieces of paper. This is Canson Imagine, which is mixed media paper, and this one, which you might be able to see, is just that little bit whiter and it's smoother. It's Bristol paper, it's Canson XL, which is cheaper than the Bristol boards, but it works just as well. But I've gone for the Canson Imagine. I've got a selection of pens. I've got a pencil that I use to draw a border around this, and I've got 4 fine point pens. I've got Unipins and Sakura Microns. I've got a 0.5, 0.1, I think this is a 0.3, hopefully it's not one that's too worn down. I've got a brush pen in case I decide to add areas of black, which is possible. Just a ruler, and just to give you an idea of the size of this paper, it's about 14 centimetres by 14.6, which in old-fashioned, for us in UK and Europe and around the rest of the world, it's about 5 3/4 inches by just a little bit over 5 3/4 inches. It's nearly 5 7/8. No, it's not. It's a little bit under 5 3/4. There we are. It's 5 5/8 ish. That's because the paper I had, I couldn't split it in two to have it equally, 2 equal squares, and I thought, no, I'm going to do it like that. This is fine. Okay, so I'm going to start with the 05, and I'm just going to draw for the pleasure of drawing. I'm going to draw with shapes and lines that bring pleasure to me. I've got no plan of including flowers or mushrooms or anything, but if they appear, they appear. So this is purely an intuitive way of drawing. And before I start, I am going to pop the autofocus on. Yeah, it is in focus. I've got my glasses on, so when I look at the screen, everything looks blurry. But I am checking the screen to check that I'm still in focus. And I'm actually choosing to start here on one side of this paper. And I'm going to start with that. Just a little wedgie wedge. Now, I'll try and keep my hand out the way. I can't promise I will, but hopefully I'll have it out the way often enough for you to see what's going on. I have to adjust my grip of the pen because I'm so used to drawing with the pen so upright, I obscure everything. This isn't natural for me. But underneath this, I'm going to go with one of the shapes that I really love to draw. It's kind of an S shape backwards, but it's got a big part there and a little one there, and it creates something that could be all kinds of deliciousness. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw another line there so it looks like there's something inside it. And I do like to draw in the edges as I go. Now, there may be times where bits and pieces what I'm drawing fall outside the lines, and that's fine by me. I work with what happens. If I try to draw perfectly straight lines freehand, they sometimes don't end up that way. And I prefer things that are drawn freehand to drawn with a ruler. So it's too perfect. So I've got this going on here. And you are free to draw along with me if you wish, or take inspiration from it, or just enjoy the process. So I do enjoy watching other people draw and create. I've done a lot of that recently. I think you get to a point where you think, oh, I need something different, or perhaps it's just been the way I've been feeling and various other things going on. But this is always a pleasure to me, just drawing very intuitively with very little idea of what's going to happen. It's almost like each line I put gives me the starting point for the next one. Although I haven't gone upwards yet, I am working my way down, aren't I? So I do want to add something in here. And that just feels the right thing to do. And even to the point where I may actually add another one, like so. At the ends of the lines, I am adding little bits of ink as glue to stitch the lines, or to glue the lines, or weld the lines together, or solder them together, depending on how you see them. And I'm using the 05 because I quite like the boldness of the line, because I'm going to use finer ones to add some texture and to give it depth and dimension later on. Now, whether I finish this in this video, it's unlikely, but it's the process that's important, and just sharing with you some of the things I've been doing. And as I've said, I will show you some artwork that I've been working on in the past weeks, quietly and when I'm able to, and I'll show you what I've been up to and the way I've been exploring things. And that then, if you're interested, may give you ideas for yourself, or you may wish to make a request of me to show some of the techniques or some of the things I've been trying out, because I'm still not sure about them, some of them. But I'm just going to add some line weight there. I think this will need some line weight here, because line weight will add that feeling of dimension when it's done correctly, I think. It adds that feeling that we've got some shadow going on, some deep dark shadowing going on in that particular area, and it just helps to bring things to life. Look at the bottom here, I could do some, definitely along this one here. This pen has worn down on one side, so I can get quite thick lines with it. Now, the fact that's got wider towards that end doesn't worry me very much. But what I will do is I will adjust the other ones, perhaps with a finer pen would have been better, to match that kind of end shape so it looks deliberate rather than an accident. That's how you fix things. And here, this is a very odd shape, just this little bit here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little cutout, a cutaway there almost, like so. Okay, so what am I going to do here? Let's see what shape. Just rolls out of the tip of my pen. It almost looks like a little snub nose, doesn't it? It's like a little nose there and a ginormous nostril. And who's to say that can't be the case? So let's go with that, what it looks like. I'm just going to draw a big mouth on part of the chin there. And just put a base there, because this feels like a pillar. It feels like I'm creating some kind of pillar along this side. And that's been something that's very much appeared in my artwork of late, as you'll see. Okay, let's turn this into a mouth, so we need some lips. Yeah, it's very stylized because I don't really do faces. This is a bit of a wobbly line, but that's where you can use line weight to sort it out. So we just need to add some more along the bottom. And then just realised I can zoom in, can't I, for you? How about that? And then to draw the teeth, I'm going to have a sort of like a wide, shallow V shape, and from the bottom of that V I'm just going to have the section there, and then I'm just going to divide this up like so, and I'll make them look a bit more realistic. Here I need to do something with this section because I want to put an eye in eventually. I don't know why these Mayan type or Aztec type sculptures have been appearing in my work lately. It happens from time to time. It's when I draw dragons. That's when friends who know me worry about me, because they only come out when I'm not on the best form. Okay, so these lines also need some line weight, and I'm going to put it on the bottom of these shapes so that it feels that this is raised up. And I think I may be able to sneak an eye in here. Yes, I think so. Let's get some line weight there. I'm going to add a highlight there and just fill that in with black. There we go. Just see if I can round the tops of those off. So I've got that kind of thing going on. I'll make these look more like teeth later on. I'm just putting the basic shapes down. And that's what I tend to do in art, is the basic shapes are the important things. Everything else helps to bring it to life, whether it's textural patterns, mark making as it's called sometimes, textural patterns, textures, or whether it's through colour or shading. It all works eventually. Okay, so we've got there. Now then, this part here I'm going to make this feel like it goes under. Then I'm going to add another lip here because it looks like a pot, doesn't it? Well, I didn't have that in mind when I drew it, but it just reminds me of some kind of flower pot here. So I'm just going to do that, and perhaps another little rim there. It's quite fun to build it up. It also means that I've got a limited amount of space here, and I do think I want to put some foliage in here. So I'm going to start on this side, a little bit in, and so I'm going to draw some very tall leaves. This one's going to bend down, perhaps out a little bit. So it's this kind of shape. So it's almost like a J, and then we make that curved end very long and just kick it out a little bit. And then I'm going to create that side of this part of the leaf. So this is where it folds over, and so then I just need to make the other part of it like that. And I can work with this and the shape of it by adding lines in afterwards, which I think will be fun. I'm not going to do any line weight for a moment. Let's just concentrate on getting some leaves done. So I'm going to add one here, which kind of seems to appear from behind this one, like so. I want one that goes like this, I think, and then it can go like so. Can have one here to fill that part in, and then perhaps just a little one that goes off there like that. This has the feeling that I could actually put another one in here like so, and I quite like that as it is. That'll work. It's good enough for me. So I'm just going to go and put the the lines in here. Like so, because I'll do something with those spaces eventually. In fact, there's a little bit of the outline there, so I'm just going to put it there and fill it in with black. Okay, so that is looking interesting. This needs something in it, and I think what I'm going to do is put some shapes in like this, and I'm going to thicken the lines to the right, so it will look like they're indented a little bit. Let me just tidy this up here and there. So that's an interesting first side, isn't it? So what am I going to do here? I don't know. Just tidying lines up while I let my head work out what it would like to do. So I scratch my nose, move hair out of my eyes. Yes, it's one of those days. Okay, I want something coming out from... Actually, I do want to do something with this here. Apparently. Almost like we've got some kind of pattern that goes underneath the nose. Like so. Just to split that area up. Just a little bit. And perhaps I can just add that there as well. And perhaps one that goes there. And even one that might go just there. I'm going to have to be careful what I do with these, so I don't need to split it from the lip, but that's what texture comes. So this is where I've got to so far. Let's see if we can see the whole of it. So it's looking interesting. Oops. It's interesting. Now, I'll show you at the end again. Some of these, they're much taller and narrower or A4 sized, so the more rectangular, A4-ish sized. But this one is quite square, so I don't have that height to add more and more. But that's not going to stop me from doing what I'd like to do, so let's just see what we get here. Oh no, that's an interesting shape. So I'll trace it round with my pen. I'm going like this. It's like either like a letter S, if I bring this down here. So it's a letter S. Coming back here with a hook. It's like an upside down letter L. And then that's like a letter C, a very shallow C. I like that. And I'm going to add a repeat of that shape there. And join them together with that curved end. Like that. I do. This is interesting because I feel that I can put a spiral in here. Feels like it's the right place to add something like this. I could have put something like a muka if we're talking Zentangle terms. But I just feel that is what's needed. Right, let me just get my line weights. I want this to appear that it's sort of like nestled into this main bit, and I may actually just add that line weight there. There we go. That's interesting, and I could have that coming around, but I'm going to leave that for now. Decide what happens. This is lovely because this will create a lovely spherical shape, which could be like a bead or a round mirror, something like that. But it needs something to hold it, so I'm going to go with the idea of a spiral again. This is almost like sculpting an imaginary world or an imaginary place that I'd like to be in, but I haven't got any image of what is there. I'm just letting it unfold on the paper, line by line, or motif by motif, or shape by shape, however you want to view it. And I just trust that process. And it never fails to amaze me how I end up with such things. Having said that, this may actually turn out to be an eye because This feels so much like a hat of some kind. So this is almost a very elongated teardrop, but the bottom end is cut off a little bit. So they could be feathers. Maybe a touch of the Egyptian coming in here, I'm not sure. I do have a love of ancient Egyptian. Let's be honest, I have a love of all kinds of architecture, particularly old ones, really old, ancient. You know, modern stuff, nah, not really. You know, it's interesting, but doesn't really do much for me. You know, I'm amazed at the marvels of modern materials and what people can accomplish, but don't necessarily find the shapes and forms very pleasing. I'm definitely somebody who loves spirals and things that harken back to medieval and Celtic times and even into prehistory. That's interesting. That's created an interesting shape. So perhaps I can get this now. It just feels that I need to have this almost bending over here a little bit. To create that. That's interesting. Do I want to create this as an eye? I don't think so. Because that almost feels like either we've got a shell holding something growing out of it, or it's another kind of pot with some leaves growing out of it there. So I think I'll go with that. You know, I like these kinds of weird faces, but I know they're not everybody's kind of cup of tea. I just feel this needs something in it to break up that large expanse of space inside it. So just a curl. Again, I'm going to add some line weight, like so, to give that suggestion that it's actually above whatever's underneath of it. And that suits me very nicely. Oh, what's going on here? Well, that's the way my hand moved. I'd no thought about that, but I'm happy for that. And I can actually create an edge here. That actually works out quite nicely because it doesn't attach to any lines particularly here. It's quite distinct from the face, so the face won't get left in it. So what can I do here? Apparently that. So these are kind of S shapes. This one too. It's a S shape that comes back on itself. It's a kind of wave. I don't know what shape it is. It's a curved line. And then I'm going to go here. I'm going to add another kind of bead or mirror there. Let's look for a pedestal underneath it. Okay, so I'm going to want shadow underneath these sections just to lift them up. Same here, we'll have shadow underneath here. And some here. And there, and up and around here. Connect these with some little welds of ink. I prefer the word weld because it then makes me think that this could be turned into stained glass by somebody skilled in it, maybe. Painted on glass. So I've got something interesting here. Again, I've got this shape. Do I want to? I am going to take it there. But that is just a kind of mookerish shape, squashed on the edge. I'm going to make the end of it look like it's outside of this section and just going elsewhere. This needs to be darker as well. Let me go back to these because I haven't done anything here with weighting the lines. Is making some thicker than others to give that illusion of dimension, of volume, of layers. So I'm looking at these as if these ooh, that's going to be a fat one there, that's fine. You just adjust it all the way down and it'll look deliberate, that's the point. It's hand-drawn, so it's never going to be perfect. Well, not with me these days, it seems. But the way that you create things is indicative of you, the way your hands, your muscles work. You leave a part of you, a signature of you, on everything that you create in life, whether you're aware of that or not. We all may do things in a similar way, but they're not really similar or identical. That's quite nice, there's a lot of ink there. And I want to do the same kind of thing with these. Now, this is likely to be slightly damp, so I'm just going to move this to the side a bit. Let me move up a bit. And I'm going to be looking at where the leaves are on the bottom, and I've got a left-hand side to add line weight to. So this is sort of curving around to be under the bottom here, as is this one. So a little bit here will be on the left, like so. This one's towards the bottom, this is on the left up to about the middle. This here is all the way down to the left. That's the left there. That's the bottom. Left so far up because then it starts to curve and become the top, and that's where you finish the line thickening. Down here, all the way around. But I can see there's a little bit here that sort of points downwards. I'd rather like that there. There we go. I am going to add some line weight here because there perhaps would be some shadow for this leaf here and a little bit there. So that's just added some dimension definition here. This one, I said it reminds me of a shell, and I'm going to make it that little bit more like one. So I'm using curved lines here to give the feeling that this may be rather curved and separated into sections. And I'm going to leave my drawing there today because I want to show you how I add some interest to this and shading and other things. So let me start with these leaves. And what I'm going to do here is I'm taking my an 01 pen, so a fine pen. I have got finer ones somewhere, but 01 will work. And I'm just going to draw lines that are parallel to the edge, or a ring if you will. But then somewhere along the middle I'm just going to draw a few dots. It doesn't have to be the same number, but it just adds that feeling that we've got a bit of light, a little bit more light here, and perhaps reflectiveness. This one here, I'm only going to manage to get 2 lines, I think, in here. But instead of putting the sparkle somewhere in the middle, I'm putting it where this leaf would be sort of like curving to the topmost part before it starts to curve away again. Like so. And by using the lines that go with the shape of the leaves, it helps to give that feeling of movement, that the leaf isn't flat, that it's curving. And of course we can make the lines thicker towards the places where they connect, Again, increasing the shadow underneath this line, increasing the shadow here where they go into shadow, and the same down here. And then that just adds that feeling of dimension. I'll do another one and I'll zoom in so you can see a bit better. Again, I'll choose a leaf like this that isn't complete for this. So I'm going to start on one edge. I'm going to go up. I'm going to go to where I think there might be some light being caught on this. And this one I can fit in probably 3 of these little lines. They're not matching, they're not the same length. They've got some variation, and I like that because it makes it feel so much more organic, less perfect, and more like things are in the natural world. Again, I'll do the same here, like so. And then I'll add some line weight to the bottom of these lines, just to help to bring in the idea that there's more shadow. I could do this by adding more lines in between them, but I find that ends up looking cluttered and a bit too fussy. Whereas just by wielding a little bit of ink and turning these lines into almost elongated triangles, like so, it adds that density of black to give that shading without anything else. It just suggests that there's darkness there. So let me do the same along this leaf. It's the same idea with each leaf, even where they go one behind another. Keep the principles the same and it will work out. So here we just need to imagine this line going behind there. It doesn't have to match up exactly on the other side. Close enough is close enough in this instance, and it'll work. Because again, these are just there to add that interest, that suggestion of shadow and light, and the way the leaf moves and bends, more than it is to add like definition or pattern and interest, although we are adding a pattern here. The pattern is for that suggestion of highlight and shadow. I think I'll get one in here as well. There we go. Again, I'm just going to go back and just add ink to these lines just to bring the shading into the leaf where they fold over, where there would be shadows. I've done a very good job here, but by adjusting the others, it'll work its way through and it'll be fine. Never fret too much. And here again, it's just going to be adding some ink where the shadows lie, which is there, nearly done. And you can see the difference that's made to the leaves, how these, even though you've got that sense of the top folding over, this brings them to life just with line patterns and texture. And those little breaks really do suggest that there's light there where there's light being caught. Like here. So I'll just go here and here and here and down there. I might even get one in there, to be honest. And the last one is here. So I'm just turning my paper around so that I can work more comfortably. So I'll do that. And then again here. There we go. So that's my leaves in this urn thing. Okay, Do you know what I've just noticed? I didn't put any kind of line weight on these. I'm going to put line weight on the left of the pairs of lines, the ones I added, the underneath. And then it looks like I've got bars going over it, even though they don't kind of, you know, go out there. There's that feeling that we have those bars. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go round all of these thinner sections and I'm going to add a very fine line at the lower edge of them. And sometimes I might put a break in them. If they're not even, if they're not very neat and tidy, I'm not too worried, because that just adds interest or character to the design. On this one, I am going to do that, and I am going to follow it round until I can just connect it to the spiral. And I'll do the same here in the bottom, and I'll just connect it into the centre of that spiral. And there it will end up there. These ones, I want to put this line underneath each section, because I feel I want these to look like they are overlaying the one below it. And I'll come back to that in a moment. Here, I'll do something here, but with these, the first thing I want to do is to create kind of arches at the top. Like so, to create those rounded teeth where they go into gums. And then I'm just going to put some dots at the top and a line to the left. Dots on the top and a line to the left. I'm going to try not to let that line touch this central part. So I'm going to come back and add, in fact I'll do that now, is I'm going to add a diamond shape of ink, or a triangular shape here, just to connect them. And again I'm going to add that line and then the dots, and that just makes those teeth appear as if they've got some volume again, they're not just flat. Underneath this one I'm still going to put one of these, underneath this eye I'm still going to put one of these lines, like so. And I'm actually not going to put any lines here for the eyes, I'm just going to leave it as it is. Here I think I want to add that echo there. I think I may put one on this side as well. Just feels the right thing to do. I'm going to leave that as it is. Oh no, I'm not. Take this up and add some dots all the way up. So even with this I'm adding these lines as if they're shadows, or the suggestion that this might be darker than you think it is. And under here as well. So let's just do that there. There we are. So just simple things like this, by adding that extra bit more ink, as simple as a line, hopefully you can see that it brings that feeling that there's shadow going on there. Here the same, except here I'm just going to put some dots in the middle, just to add it like it's a shadow. I could do little lines going in this direction like cross hatching, but it doesn't feel right to me when I'm doing this. Here I've almost got a little bead there, so I'm going to add that in, and here I think I'm going to add a line in there, just to add a shadow underneath this. And then this one can have that line going up like that. I'm going to do the same here. You might notice me as I'm going around these, I am doing things like tidying up areas where the thicker pen hasn't been too accurate, smoothing out lines and so on. Okay, this section here it just feels like it should be almost a hole or very recessed and in shadow, so I've put horizontal lines there, and now I'm going to go back and add some vertical lines. And because I'm using a fine pen, I can get those lines very close together with tiny little holes in, so it appears dark, but it's not as dark as you think it is, because there's little white bits in there. Here, I think I might want to do the same, but I'm going to bend the lines downwards, the horizontal ones, because they then follow the shape of this indentation in the pot, as if it's been scooped out. Just follow it all the way up to the top. If they're not even, it's not a huge thing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some very close to the edge and one perhaps a little bit further away, and I'm going to leave the other one. And that gives me that feeling of shadowing. Here, I'm going to do something entirely different, and I'm going to fill this with little circles, just to give it some texture. Like so. Okay, the last thing I really need to do in this kind of way, look at that, I've managed to get my line outside there. You can't see it. I had a little line sticking out here, so I've just added more black and created it like that. It's hidden it. Nobody will know unless you point it out. Honestly, oh, look at this. This one hasn't got a little line around it. So that works nicely. What about these? With this one in the centre, I've got a complete leafy or feathery goodnessness. Goodnessness? I don't know if that's a word. But it's like that. So here, this is on the top of the others. Then on this side, we'll see the edge, but it will stop when it meets the next one. And this will, again, add to the illusion of layering and depth. Like so. The other side of it, the lines are going to be on the other side, because it's the right-hand side that is underneath this central motif, feather, leaf, whatever. On this side it was the right-hand side, so we're going to aura the left-hand side and bring that curve around to stop there. And again, it helps strengthen the story you want to tell the viewer, that this isn't flat. There are things going on that you can't see necessarily. There are layers here, and I'm going to show you how things just layer up. Now that little bit there is not a very big place, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add little lines here for shadow, as if, well, it would be in shadow, but this could or would carry on behind, because we can't see what the rest of this is, but it's too dark there to see what's going on. Okay, that's better. And then what I'm going to do with some of these sections, especially at the bottom of these curves, is I'm just going to fill that little gap in with tiny little lines. And maybe they can get wider in the middle and darker towards the edge, because that lightness there, it's the density of ink that makes highlights and shadows. The more lines you've got, closer together the lines are, the darker it appears. The further apart they are, the lighter it appears. So we can give that illusion of things bending here or being curved. So I'm gradually here with this one getting my lines further apart and then closer together. And so I've got that kind of sparkle in the middle just from doing this. And I can do that with all of these. I'm going to do that here. And here. All the way up there. This one belongs with the other one. And I can leave wider gaps, but I can see where I'm going to have things very close together. There and like here. Have it following, perpendicular to the lines, and then that adds shadow in that way. Again. The lines just flick out a little bit, it's not to worry because these are tiny gaps. Am I going to add colour to this? I'm not entirely sure. I could hear some of you thinking that. But if you stay around for my show and tell of work I've been doing recently, you'll understand why I'm very conflicted about colour at the moment. Like so. I mean, the lines on their own are nice, but it's nice to have this contrast as well that accentuates the layers, or the fact that we've got overlapping between things. I haven't done anything with this here, so I'm just going to dot and line like that. Put a line in there. The same underneath here, so I'm just going to bring a line round like that. I'm going to do the same. Oh, I haven't left enough space there for this, so I'm just thinking about how would these have shadow on them. So I'm just going to add tiny little lines, almost like dots attached to the line here. And I'm trying to think, where would the shadows be? Like so. This is not my favouriteest way of adding shadows. I much prefer to use a line. Perhaps I can now feel confident perhaps to put that in by joining together those outer lines. So I've got some shadowing going on there. I'm sorry I was off the screen for that. I do apologise. Same idea here. And with these bands here, so at the top I'm going to leave a large section, and then they're going to get closer and closer together. And then I get that sparkle, or that shine, that highlight that suggests this is curving outwards. And the bits that are darker have curved away. Just like that. Yeah. I think that is possibly where I will want to leave it for now. She says. Just adding the shadows to these sections. Like so. I'm quite happy with that as it is. And that's as far as I'm going to go for today. So, will I add shadow? Will I add anything else? I'll tell you what I would want to do. Excuse me. Is perhaps in these. I'm going to fill these in. I'll do one, here. This probably wouldn't take me long. But as the space gets smaller, so the circles I'm using to fill this are getting circle. I say circles, they're not really, they're almost like pebbles, it's just a texture. And then as I get closer and closer to the end, they get smaller and smaller until we fill that in. So this is the biggest space. So let's have the biggest ones here. Still quite big. And then they get smaller and smaller and smaller. And that just gives that the texture that makes it interesting, but also gives us some sense of dimension. And I've just noticed if I make the ones next to the overlap small as well, then we really do get that feeling of things being overlapped. There's more ink there. I'll do that again. Oop. Like that. So you can see I've got very tiny ones right next to the overlap, this line where it overlaps. This is a very small space there. So I'll do this one again. So we'll have some small ones here because that's where the overlap is. Perhaps here is where we've got a lot of light shining on. So we can have some open areas to suggest that there's light here. This is something I've always loved to do, but I tend to move away from it as well. I think the past few weeks have been me rediscovering myself, my art, perhaps, as well as healing and soothing and regaining energy and just taking a break from everything that can drain me. You can see what that's like. Yeah. So I am going to call this a day. Shall I? No, let's carry on. Because as now I've started, I need to finish, don't I? And then I'll leave it as it is. And perhaps I'll draw more of this in the next video. If you've been drawing along with me, feel free to carry on and complete this as you wish. Or use the ideas I've got here as you wish, because they're not new. Using patterns in ink to denote highlight, shadow, texture, how something feels, whether it's soft, hard, bumpy, smooth, fluffy, however you want to describe textures like that, then pen and ink, pencil have always been used. Etchings and lino cuts use things like this, lithographs, to denote those areas of shadow and to put that form into the drawings. Just look at old anatomical drawings and how the cross-hatching is used to bring the shapes and parts out, and the dents and the raises and textures of, things like a skull. And the same with drawings of plants and animals and everything you could imagine, to bring out highlight, shadow, texture, but the form and volume as well. It's something I can't put into the colouring books that I do, because this is just too much information and people will get stressed out by trying to colour in each and every one of these little circles, although you don't have to colour them all in individually. If I was going to add colour to this, I certainly wouldn't. Seriously, I wouldn't. Because I may come back and add a little bit of a little bit of something just to suggest that they aren't flat. But I can't put that into every single one of them. So what you do by adding a detail to the ones that you can is give the suggestion, you give a hint that all the others will be like this, even if the people aren't sure or can't see it, because they're too small to see. But you make that assumption that if these look round, then all the others must be round or humped or dipped or spiky or smooth or shiny or dull. As your mind will happily fill things in for you, it will do the thinking and go, I don't need to process much of this. If those are like that, then the rest of those must be the same. And I think artists use that quite a lot. I'm not an expert on art theory, believe it or not. I did A-levels when I was in my early 40s in the school I taught at with the sixth formers who were 16, 17 and 18 years old. And it was more about experience than it was about experiencing and experimenting with different media, different ways of drawing, different types of art, and other kinds of creative pursuits that are considered, I did weaving and pottery and all sorts there. But I don't know much about the theories and everything else, because I just like to do. And although I'm aware of things, I make observations. These things still happen. Oh, I was going to add some details. So if I just put a little hint of ink, I'm actually putting like a tiny little smile at the base of the ones that I can actually put something in. It's not easy. If I'd drawn this bigger, it would have been a lot easier. But there's something appealing about tiny art. Although this wouldn't be considered tiny compared to the miniature artists who work on like an inch or inch and a half, tiny, tiny little surfaces to paint on or draw on or whatever they want to create on. And the detail they're able to put in, amazing. Not my thing. I do like drawing small and dainty, and sometimes working on small artwork is actually a good thing because it's not as overwhelming as something that is huge. And on the days I feel overwhelmed by doing anything, then sometimes it is just small art, or it's just allowing myself not to have to finish a piece of work quickly, is to be able to put it down and pick it back up. And I've been doing a lot of that. It's taken me a lot longer to complete artworks. This almost looks like crocodile skin, snake skin. It's not meant to, but that's how it's ended up, perhaps, or little pebbles. So it doesn't feel smooth. It looks like it, if you could touch it in real life, that it would be lumpy and bumpy. So that is the part that is all about this. It's all the drawing. So it's taken me, the best part of an hour to do this much, which actually isn't bad going if you think about it. So think about the rest of it. It's going to take another hour, hour and a half, 2 hours maybe, depending on how I approach this. But let me just adjust the camera. I'll zoom out so you can see this at a distance. And even though you can see here in particular the effect of that thick black line and the tiny circles, about the shadow it's casting and how more subtle it is in other places. So here, less light would hit the base and on the end. So it's put that feeling of dimension in just by simple lines. No graphite pencils used. Okay. Right. Let's have a look at some stuff then. I'm going to pick my camera up. Sorry if you get a bit on the woozy side. Oops, there you go. You see my top. How's that doing? I can show them on the side because a lot of them I've drawn on the side, but not all of them. So let me just move that up. Let's see. Can I move this up any more? Possibly. Can we? Oh no, it won't go up any higher. There we are. That's the tallest it will go. But we'll cope, won't we? Yes, we will. All right. So what I've got here is one of the drawings that I did. I'm not entirely sure what date. This was on Bristol paper, and there's a lot of smudging on here because I was using, I can't remember what pens I was using, but they were not drying quickly on it. And I got so much smudging, and that's why the background is full of tiny little circles and so on to try to disguise the smudges. You can see some here and some there. But I quite like this. I like the openness of it. Part of me thinks, oh, I should go back and colour that all in black. But I think if I do add colour, I would add darker tones to the background, say a dark teal or a dark blue-green or a dark blue. And the rest could be whatever colours I want. There's none of this textural stuff on this. I've just left it plain. The only texture is in the background. The rest of it is just plain line art. And looking at it, I want to go back and add things, those little lines here and here, things that can bring out the dimension. But I couldn't see that at the time I did this. It did take me quite a while to do. Okay. But it was nice to do because it's this tall, thin format, if I put it on the side. And things grow up. And you've got darkness and light and then back to sort of darkness going on. I don't know what that means, if it means anything. It's just how it worked out. And I've got a single spirally shell there. But there's seeds being cradled by these mookery type things in Zentangle terms. I've got these lovely leaves which remind me very much of arts and crafts or medieval manuscripts, and the way that lines overlap and interweave do as well, and the way they come together. And tulip-like things. I have drawn these in previous videos of video where I've shown how to draw them in variations on a theme. Arches are very much a thing of my art. This took me a long time to do, put it that way. I drew it with black fine liners, and then a lot of the shading I've added has been done with ballpoint pen, black ballpoint pens, and with microns on top, Sakura microns, or, fine liners on top. These areas I was going to leave white, but I did something, I didn't like it, and so I filled them in with black and just put some stars there. Probably too many. But there's a lot of dimension in this. It's very grey and dark, but there's a lot of contrast as well, so that where there is a great deal of contrast like here, though it's not showing up on the camera very much. I think my light in here might be just a little bit too... I'll see if I can adjust it, but there is a lot of contrast here, so there's a lot of dimension. I don't like this bit here at all. That is the one bit I'm disappointed with. I've loved drawing these kinds of trees or foliage, and when I did it, and I put this to one side a while ago, I thought, oh, why did I do that? But looking at it now, I thought I got too complicated with stippling. Stippling is lots of little dots, and the density of the dots shows you how light or how dark. The denser the dots, the darker it appears. And you can actually move with contours with them and things like that. This texture here, where else? Up here, is basically just scribbling. And you get the scribbles very close together, very dense, where you want shadow, and you leave them apart when they aren't. I know what's the problem here is that the ballpoint pen is reflecting the light, which is why it's looking very lightly grey, and it's not, it's actually quite dark. Let me see if I can move the light a little bit. Hopefully, does that help? Yeah, sort of. I'll put the light back on because we are losing things, but you can see the contrast and dimension there. You could always put your finger in that hole or through here. It's like a tube going somewhere there, but where's it going? And here and here. So, put your finger in and explore. but that's amazed me. When did I do this? At the beginning of November. But I like the contrast where I've used white for patterns and textures as well in some areas. I haven't put any highlights on other than that. Oh, I have, yes, in places. But that's another one. This one, I haven't dated it or anything. It's not finished yet. Which way does it go? No. Yes, that way. I don't think it matters. But I started adding these textural patterns, and then I wanted to see what would happen if I used colours on the top. So some of these are Pitt Artist pens, and then I moved to alcohol markers. I like alcohol markers. I do. Pitt Artist pens are great in their own way, but alcohol markers are my thing. Here I had to go over a right mess I made. So my plan is to come back. Should I return to this with white or gold or something else to add some pattern there? The same with these black areas are where I want to add stars and a star field and so on. I'll put it on its side so you can see, because I don't think there's any one right way. I think it works in most directions. It's just, I know I drew it with this at the bottom and this at the top, but it works this way as well, I suppose. Most probably would that way. Eventually. So yeah, golds and greens and coppery browns. This one is actually completed. It's on paper that's from either a Sakura sketchbook or one of the Royal Talons Art Creative sketchbooks. It's very smooth. It's smoothish. It's off-white and it's nice to draw on. But alcohol markers in it, I think they actually work okay together. But this I did with, I can feel it, it's a fountain pen. The way that the ink leaves the texture on there, I think it's oxblood ink. I like this up here. It's almost like a compass rose, but it's not, because it's not geometrically correct. But you can see these shapes coming in, these platforms and patterns, the swirls and this, joining things together. Really like that. But I've done, that's it, that's complete. The drawing is complete. When was this? This was back in October. The drawing's complete, but I don't know whether I want to add colour or shade to it. I'm happy with this one. I'm happy with it as it is. You can see I've used cross-hatching up here to get the dimension in. It may be that I'll go back and add more at some point, or not. There's another one. This is around the end of October as well. These are really cute, these kinds of flowery things. Again, there's that kind of shape happening here. Here, this. And I've started adding textural patterns here as well, to add that darkness. This, I think I'd want to make this darker because I'd like this to feel like we've got a river or a crack, that these are growing over and healing it all back, joining everything together. I might actually, that would be quite fun to put a crack here in the same way, as if, you know, this is holding the two sides together and stopping them flying apart. Over here, this was interesting. And I'm looking at it now and thinking, actually that's worked, because at the time I did it, I didn't think it would. This is one of my, I love that kind of filler pattern as well. But there we are. 2 for 1 here on this one. I'll turn it on its side, even though this is the top. Lots of textural pattern here in greys, shades of grey. Mainly a sort of like not a light, this is light grey, this is a darker grey. But again, it's the same idea of using lines, cross-hatching, textural patterns and so on to bring out the shades. This one, this is actually a wine red Uniball Eye pen, which is a roller ball, but the ink is permanent, but it's smudged on here. So I'm really gutted about that. This is the Bristol paper. But the difference between drawing in colour and black and white, I'm not sure which I prefer. I like this. I like the rusty browns I love for drawing. But this, I'm not so sure about. It's very vibrant, but you have to try it. Oh, this one. I've been working on this on and off since the 11th of November. And you can see I've got these faces and heads. I started using the Pitt Artist pens, which have got Indian ink in them. And I couldn't get the variation in colour that I wanted. So I switched to some alcohol markers. I think they're Arteza. They might be some Ohuhu, I don't know for sure. But I wanted earthy colours. So I've got earthy greens and earthy browns. And I've got these blues here. And this ended up, I thought, oh gosh, that looks a bit like an elephant. Where did that come from? No idea. So, you know, I've got a lot to finish. Some of the colours I'm not happy with down here. They're all very dull and uninteresting, but I know that going back with highlights, I can bring those back to life. The same here with these flower heads. This really does look like we're looking through a gap here down to something else. And these look like they're looking beyond that as well to something else. Lots of layers, lots of interest, but incomplete. But there is a fair amount of texturing here. But my thought with this one was get the colour down, then add the textures. This. Added alcohol markers, then used a white blender pen to add the dots. And I love that effect. It feels like cells, it feels spongy, it feels soft, it feels interesting. And of course, the closer together and bigger the dots are, the lighter it looks. So it's a lovely way to add that colour and texture. Look, dragon. Oops. I forgot to put its tail in. So I decided to use this to see how well the Bristol paper works with alcohol markers, and it actually works really well. There is bleeding through, but not so much that it goes through onto paper beneath very much. It's a very chubby dragon, and it's got a silly large head and no neck, and its tummy's pointing in completely. Yeah, I haven't drawn dragons for a long time, but it was just something I wanted. For some reason, I just wanted to have a go at. But again, you can see the texture. I've used textural lines to add the darker bits, and even when I add the colour over it, those remain and show through and increase that contrast. So I'm really happy about that. That was something I learned. This is actually a gift for a friend. It was their birthday not long ago, and this is what I created for them. They do want it coloured, and I've said, well, you're going to have to wait because I've been asked, well, sunshine yellows, rich, deep, satiny reds, and then everything else is up to me, I guess. But the dragon's got to remain white, though. But I will use a very pale blue or a pale grey, blue most probably, or blue-grey to add shadowing in there, just to help with that and bring highlights back. But this was fun. Apparently this is really funny, this face down here. I'll move it up so you can see. Apparently that is loved very greatly by them. So yeah. And I did enjoy drawing this. I didn't realise at the time it was going to be the gift, but it came to me partway through. I thought, oh, that dragon needs to be remain white. Oh, I know who this is for now. So yeah, and you can see these leaves again appearing here. So the drawing is done here. There may be more textural patterns to add once I've added colour. I don't know yet. And here's another one which had, this poor dragon. It's looked like it's hit a wall and its snout has gone back into its head and expanded its head. But it's there. There's eyes and some faces have appeared. They do this. But I've got some flowers growing instead of leaves up there and lots of textural patterns like here. Perhaps if I put my light back on, I've got rid of the ones that have got other stuff in. Let me just, there we go, as a light. Let there be light. But again, like this scribbling pattern, I think it's called scumbling is the technical term for it. There's a lot there. I wish I hadn't added so much to the flowers, but then if I decide to add colour, that will help to bring them out. I haven't quite finished with things. This face is facing off the page, which is an unusual way for me to draw it, because I would normally have them facing each other. But it's like they're all looking towards the future, looking forward. There's that one. This here, look, it's a winged head. Don't know how that turned out. This one is drawn, but I haven't added any texture. I think my thinking was I'd like to add colour before I do that. But I haven't decided what to do. Can you tell I'm not a particularly big fan of colouring? I find it frustrating, I find it annoying, and part of me thinks I really need to do it digitally because I can choose colours more wisely and use a limited colour palette that I can set up. Although I always seem to tend to use very bright, vibrant colours when I really want something that's a bit more subdued. It must be something in me that requires bright and vibrant colours. But there's that one. And then there's this one, which I actually finished just before I came to do the video. I finished it in terms of texture and pattern. And this I've left fairly simple there. It's just a way to fill that space. I feel it needs colour. But I also feel I want to, like with all of the ones that haven't got colour, I want to scan them in before I add colour to them. Because these are, I don't want to mess them up. I want to, if I scan them in and add colour digitally, I can't mess them up. And I've still got the black and white ones, which I do really love. And I do think that these lines really help. Just simple lines and simple patterns are really helping to bring this to life. I may add some more, I'll come back to it in a day or two with fresh eyes and go, yes, I know what I need to put here and here and here, how I can add some dimension to other parts or some shading just to help to bring the layers out. But for now, it needs to go to one side. So that's all my work that I've been doing. So now I'll tell you about what's been going on with me briefly. As you know, the past year, I say as you know, you may or may not know. A year ago, more or less, I damaged my shoulder. That was the beginning of a sharp decline to a mental, emotional, tough part in my life. Lots of things happened in a short space of time that caused me to actually burn out emotionally, energetically, mentally. And I knew that after 3-4 weeks of feeling downright miserable, not being able to stop crying, not looking on the bright side of life, managing to get work done, but feeling grim about things, it's really hard to find the oomph to do things. I kept going though, putting a brave face on, smiling. I knew eventually I'd need some help. So I know the tools to heal myself. But because my emotions were getting in the way, I elected this time to take antidepressants again, which have helped hugely. Although I have my bad days still, most of the time I'm mostly content. But then lots of other things happened. The menopause kicked in, or perimenopause, and that just got worse and worse. And I had brain fog, I had no energy, I had no way of looking at things or getting myself out of bed some days. And it wasn't the depression or anxiety that was doing that. It was a combination of things. So that was looked into, and I was found to be anemic with both B12 and iron. So back in the late summer, I started taking medication for that. And after 2-3 months of taking iron, my iron levels had fallen to seriously anemic. Not seriously enough that I'd need a blood transfusion, but seriously enough that it was obvious that 1 iron tablet a day wasn't working. Can you please take 2 for the next 3 months or so, and we'll check you then. Thank goodness when I went back, both my B12 levels had gone into the normal and the iron had crept into the bottom end of normal. So I'm still taking iron. I need to take iron now until the beginning of the year, and beginning of the new year, I'll have another test and see where we go from there. I've also been diagnosed with IBS. I thought it was a problem with the medication I took, but apparently not. And so I've been following a diet for the last 2-3 months called the FODMAP diet. And I've eliminated everything that could cause problems with my digestive system. Sometimes the things that are supposed to be okay weren't. And sometimes stress would set things off, which is understandable. But it meant that I've discovered milk is no good for me. Lactose free is no good. It's instant flare up. Eggs I've not been able to stomach for a long time, so I'm glad that they're off the menu, or anything that has eggs in. So I've essentially gone vegan, and I'm vegetarian. And my diet, because the FODMAP, has been fairly limited, because things that I love I can't eat anymore because I've tried them. I went out for brunch earlier this week with my older sister, my niece, and my friend Liz. And I thought, I'm going to try a piece of bread, because trust me, gluten-free bread that you buy is disgusting. I've yet to make my own, but I'm going to try soda bread, which I love, because I think it'll work really well with the gluten-free flour and buckwheat flour I've got here, or oat flour, or a mixture of them all. But as delicious as the garlic mushrooms were on a slice of toast, a couple of hours later, it was not pleasant, let me say that. It was quite explosive. And I've been suffering since then. And of course, with menopause, with IBS, and with the mental, emotional things and perimenopause, fatigue is a common symptom. So I am tired much of the time. And that means I haven't had the energy or the focus, because some days it is focus, I just don't have it. Or I start doing something and I just fall asleep at it. And that's happened to me several occasions when I've tried to create a video. I've just had to go to sleep. And I can't pick it up where I left it off, because I can't remember really what I did, even watching what video I took. That's if I remember to put the camera on. So I'm still in the process of getting through the other side. All the issues of the past year have sort of resolved in some way, or they're on the point of doing that. There's one big thing that I'm waiting for, which hopefully will be sometime in the new year, and not towards the end of the next year, but we'll see about that. I've had the all clear on a few things that the health problems could have been. I've got HRT for the menopause, perimenopause, which is helping. My brain's not quite so foggy, but it is still foggy. And it certainly helped with mood and various other things. I'm still not good at going out my house. I've still got a lot of social anxiety. But I am going to a local supermarket twice a week, because I found a plant milk I like. Although vegan cheese is absolutely disgusting. I'm told the ones made from cashew nuts are quite nice. Unfortunately, cashews are off the menu for me. I haven't tried them yet. It's one. I'm trying to do one thing at a time, so I'm not sure whether it was mushrooms or bread on Tuesday that caused the problem. So I may buy a roll of ordinary bread from an in-store bakery, to try and see if bread is okay. And then I'll know it's mushrooms that are the problem, or the garlic. It could have been garlic, because I did ask for a tiny bit of garlic, but garlic can be a problem. I had red lentils yesterday in a sort of like stewy soup, or soupy stew, whichever way you want. That's my first time for them. So far, not a problem. And so it's a slow process of reintroducing things. And of course, as I introduce more things, then hopefully, I'm taking a really good multivitamin and mineral every day, because I am lacking some of those things. But I'm getting there. And I've discovered that I've been living with a lot of abdominal pain for a very long time without realising it. Because on the days where I don't have any problems, where my digestive system is calm and soothed, I'm thinking, how did I not know that you can live life like this? I think this has been, I know that stress an upset causes problems with my digestive system. It's always been the same. But I didn't realise, like all of us, you don't realise what it is when that's all you've ever known, that it's a problem. So that's where I am. I've missed autumn this year and the world's outside because I just haven't been out. But, you know, the world is wonderful. It's beginning to reveal its underlying structures as the leaves depart. And although winter is on its way, soon, and it's not I don't mind winter. I find the short days, long nights, the lack of sunshine can be a problem for me. I do have a sun therapy lamp, so I'm all right for that. Oh, and the other thing, I actually finally changed my sofa downstairs, and I've now got a day bed, which is basically a sofa that turns easily into a bed. It's a sofa that's got a mattress on it instead. It's a single bed, and it is the best thing I have ever bought for sitting on, for getting comfortable, for nesting, for drawing. And I've bought a sort of like table that will sit over my legs, and it can tilt and I can draw on it like an easel, so I can actually really make myself comfortable there as well. And I have napped on the bed a couple of times, and it's very comfortable, I do have to say that. It's not going to become my main bed, but I'm telling you what, in the summer, when it gets hot upstairs, gets really hot in house because heat rises, and my bedroom is south facing, so all the rooms that are south facing get a lot of warmth, but downstairs is always that much cooler. So I'm really going to look forward to being able to sleep downstairs in the coolness without having the noise of fans and things on. Watch it be icy cold this year, and unusually cold summer. Yeah, right. So lots of things have happened. Lots of things are happening in small ways. I've got ideas in my head for things I'd like to do, but I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get about them. I'm aware that I need to do some things to increase my income, as all of us do, and things, and to get my art out and to allow people to have the pleasure of owning my art, as it were, whether it's the actual physical art I do or whether it's on products and things like that. And of course, I've been nagged for a mandala colouring book for ages, and I've been nagged for various other things for ages, and these are things that I'll do myself rather than my publishers, because they're things that my publishers aren't interested in. So apparently there's far too many mandala books out there, and I go, yes, but they're not like my mandalas, but we'll see. And it's having the focus to do that and motivating myself to do something that I have to self-motivate to do, where I'm not beholden to somebody else to do it. Yes, I have problems. But I do hope that each and every one of you is fine and well. I felt I owed you that little update on things. And I hope that I'll be able to post videos more regularly. I don't know when the next one's going to be. It depends on energy levels going forwards. And this is a mega one. 1 hour and 28 minutes, for goodness sakes. But I will put markers in here, or breaks, and put timestamps in the description so people can find it. Which this is the wrong place to mention that, isn't it? At the end. But I'll get there. So until I see you again, metaphorically speaking, I want to thank each and every one of you for bearing with me, for the lovely kind messages, for just supporting me, because it really does mean an awful lot, more than perhaps you understand, for giving me a space to use my voice, for a space to share a bit more of me than perhaps I would on social media generally, for being so lovely, You have no idea how much I appreciate it, and I can't say in words how much it is. So together, I can take this channel forward. And even though the theme of art or the style of art may change a bit, it seems to be that I'm moving away from Zentangle-y stuff, and going back more to my roots, what I love to draw, rediscovering that after being, because it's been an exploration, a journey for me. Doesn't mean I won't use Zentangle patterns if it's appropriate, or the ideas and principles and things like that. There's a lot. I'm not denigrating Zentangle at all, but I have to honour me as well. And so I hope you'll continue with me on that journey as I share things with you that may be a bit different than you're used to. So take care, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video. Bye-bye for now.